Sometimes we think that if we just had a little more, all our problems would disappear. A bigger house, a nicer car, a larger bank account. These things seem like the key to happiness and security. But I want to talk about a powerful story that Jesus told a long time ago. It's a story about a man who had everything he could ever want, but he missed out on what was most important. This story, known as the parable of the rich fool, is found in the Bible, but its message is more relevant today than ever before. It teaches us a timeless lesson about where to find true, lasting joy and peace, and it's not where the world tells us to look. This parable challenges us to look deep within our hearts and ask ourselves a very important question. What are we living for? Are we spending all our energy chasing after temporary things that can be lost in a moment? Or are we investing in something eternal, something that truly satisfies the soul? Jesus told this story to remind us that our lives are so much more than just the sum of our possessions. He wanted to show us that a life filled with things can still feel empty if it's not also filled with purpose, gratitude, and a connection to our Creator. This isn't a message against having nice things. It's a warning against letting those things have you. The man in the story wasn't a bad person in the way we might think. The Bible doesn't say he was dishonest or cruel. In fact, he was successful, a hard worker who was blessed with a great harvest. His problem wasn't his wealth, it was his heart. He saw his abundance as something meant only for himself. His focus was entirely on his own comfort, his own security, and his own future. He was so busy planning for his earthly retirement that he completely forgot to prepare for eternity. He was making plans, but he left God completely out of them, and that was his greatest mistake. This story serves as a gentle but firm reminder for all of us. It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of daily life, constantly striving for more and better. We see what others have, and we feel like we're falling behind. But God is calling us to a higher way of living. He wants us to find our security not in our savings, but in our Savior. He wants us to discover the incredible joy that comes from a life of faith, generosity, and purpose. Let's open our hearts to this powerful lesson and learn how to build a life that is truly rich in the ways that matter most. Let's walk through this simple story together. It begins with a rich man whose land produced an amazing crop. It was so much more than he expected, a true overflow of blessing. But instead of feeling grateful, his first thought was one of worry and self-focus. He said to himself, "What shall I do since I have no room to store my crops?" Notice his language, I, my, and me. There was no thought of God, no thought of sharing his incredible surplus with those in need. His world had shrunk down to include only himself and his possessions. His blessing had become a burden because his heart was not in the right place. His solution was to tear down his existing barns and build bigger ones. This sounds like a smart business plan, doesn't it? He was planning for the future, making sure his wealth was secure. He told himself, "And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry." He believed that his material abundance could satisfy his soul. He thought that true rest and happiness could be found in having more than enough stuff stored away. He was trying to feed his spirit with material things, but a soul can't be nourished by grain or gold. This is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Just as the man was celebrating his clever plan, feeling secure in his own strength, God spoke into the situation. God said to him, "Fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you have provided?" In an instant, all the man's plans, all his work, and all his bigger barns became meaningless. He had spent his entire life accumulating wealth for a future on earth that he was not guaranteed. He had planned for everything except the one thing that is certain for everyone, the end of his earthly life. The man's tragedy was not that he was rich, but that he was rich only for himself. He had everything he needed to live a comfortable life, yet he was spiritually bankrupt. He missed the entire point of his blessings. God had poured out abundance upon him, giving him a perfect opportunity to be a source of blessing to others, to make a real difference in the world, and to store up treasures in heaven. Instead, he hoarded his blessings, and in the end, he lost everything, including his own life. This powerful story shows us the incredible danger of placing our trust in temporary earthly treasures. So, what does it mean to be rich toward God? Jesus gives us the answer right at the end of the parable. It's the opposite of the rich fool's mindset. It's about understanding that everything we have is a gift from our Creator. When we see our blessings, our time, our talents, our resources as gifts to be managed for Him, our entire perspective changes. Being rich toward God means living with an open hand, not a clenched fist. It's about cultivating a heart of gratitude for what we have, rather than constantly worrying about what we don't. True wealth isn't measured by the size of our barns, but by the size of our hearts. Being rich toward God is a daily choice. It shows up in the small things. It's choosing to be generous with your time by listening to a friend who is hurting. It's using your skills to help a neighbor or volunteer in your community. It might mean giving financially, not out of obligation, but from a cheerful heart, trusting that God will provide for your needs. It's about making people a priority over possessions. Think of a simple comparison. You can have a beautiful, expensive cup that you keep locked away in a cabinet, or you can have a simple mug that you use every day to share a warm drink with someone you love. Which one brings more joy? This kind of spiritual richness brings a security that money can never buy. When our hope is in God, we don't have to live in fear of the future. We don't have to worry that a stock market crash or a lost job will destroy us. Our foundation is not built on the shifting sands of the economy, but on the solid rock of God's faithfulness. This doesn't mean we won't face challenges, but it does mean that in the midst of those challenges, we have a peace that surpasses all understanding. The rich fool's security was as fragile as his own life, but our security in God is eternal. Ultimately, being rich toward God is about our relationship with Him. It's spending time in prayer, reading His Word, and allowing Him to shape our priorities. It's about shifting our focus from what can I get to what can I give. It's finding our identity not in what we own or what we do for a living, but in who we are as a beloved child of God. When we live this way, we begin to store up treasures in heaven, treasures of love, kindness, and faithfulness. These are the only treasures that last forever, the only investments that are guaranteed to pay eternal dividends. As we reflect on this timeless story, let it be a call to action in our own lives. It's never too late to check our priorities and make a change. We can choose today to stop chasing the temporary and start investing in the eternal. This isn't about feeling guilty for what we have, it's about being purposeful with what we've been given. Let's decide to live with intention, making sure our daily actions align with what we claim to value most. Let's ask ourselves, if today were my last day, would I be happy with how I spent my life's energy? What would be my legacy? Let's choose to live with a spirit of gratitude. Every morning we can wake up and thank God for the gift of another day. We can be thankful for our health, our family, and the simple blessings we often overlook. A grateful heart is a full heart, and it's the antidote to the poison of greed and envy. Gratitude opens our eyes to the abundance we already have and frees us from the constant, draining pursuit of more. It transforms our perspective, allowing us to see God's hand in every area of our lives, filling us with a deep and abiding joy that circumstances cannot steal. Furthermore, let's commit to living with radical generosity. This goes beyond money. We can be generous with our encouragement, our forgiveness, and our love. We can look for opportunities to lift others up and be a source of hope in a world that desperately needs it. The rich fool's life was a closed loop, revolving only around himself. Our lives can be a flowing river, receiving God's blessings and channeling them out to bless others. This is the path to true fulfillment. The joy we feel when we help someone else is a taste of heaven on earth, a richness that no amount of money can replicate. In the end, a life that truly matters is a life lived for God. It is a life built on faith, filled with gratitude and overflowing with generosity. It's about knowing that our ultimate security and happiness are found in Him alone. The rich fool was called a fool not because he was wealthy, but because he trusted in his wealth. Let's be wise. Let's build our lives on the one foundation that will never fail. Let's choose to be rich toward God, creating a legacy of love that will echo into eternity. This is the secret to a truly abundant life.